Hey everyone, Lisa here, and today's video will be a makeover on our master bedroom dressing table. This is the second video in my master bedroom makeover series. I've previously done our bedside tables, and today we'll be making over this dressing table. I've already started to take some of the handles off, that's why a few are missing and a couple are hanging off. It's a dark brown stained dressing table, and I want to try and change it into a more French country inspired look, so this is what we're actually starting with today. So I wanted all our bedroom pieces to, even though I wanted them to tie together and match, but I didn't want them all to be exactly the same. So each piece in my bedroom series is going to have a different paint technique applied and slightly different colors of grey and white. So let's get started. First, I've pulled the dressing table apart, so I've removed the drawers and removed the mirror. And I'm just going to give it a light sand, only just because it's got a few surface scratches that I just wanted to remove first. So we're starting with a smooth surface. And now for the paint. So I'm using a chalk paint recipe on this dressing table, as I have done for most of my projects. I'm using accent interior wall paint. The color I'm using for this piece is Tranquil Retreat. It's a very light grey, and I am actually mixing that with some plaster of Paris to create a chalk paint. You can see the recipe for my chalk paint in the bedside tables video, and I can leave a link below in the description box for that one. And I'll be using a roller to roll the paint on. So this is my chalk paint here. It's the grey paint mixed with some plaster of Paris and water, and I'm just rolling on the first coat straight onto my piece. Now it will look very patchy after the first coat because we're going from such a dark colour to such a light colour, so don't worry about that. And I ended up putting 2 full coats of the light grey onto the dressing table. This is still after the first coat. This is the actual frame of the mirror I've also painted, as we'll be doing something different with that later on. So here it's now after 2 coats, and it's covered it up quite nicely. I'll just give you a close-up of the texture. It's quite like a grainy texture to the chalk paint, and what I normally do before my final coat, I give it a very light hand sand just to smooth out that graininess. But before I do that, this is now my darker grey. The grey I'm using here is Stormy Shadow. What I'll be doing here is a wet rag paint technique over the top of the light grey. So I'm using the darkest grey, and I've watered it down with quite a bit of water, so it's a very runny mix, and I'll be using a damp rag to rub over the dressing table with this darker paint just to create some texture in the paint. So here's my damp rag, and I dip it in my paint mix and squeeze a little bit out, and then just rub this all over the dressing table, and this will just create some texture to the piece so it doesn't look so flat. So here it is after the first coat of the ragging technique, I guess you would call it. It's a little bit blotchy to start with, but this will all get smoothed out once we sand it and give it another coat. So I'm just using a 320 grit sandpaper, and giving it a very, very light hand sand all over the whole piece. And this will just smooth out that grainy texture of the chalk paint, and it'll actually give it a nice velvety finish once we put this last coat on. So using the same dark grey Stormy Shadow colour paint that we had previously, we're doing another coat over the whole piece. Now once that's dry, I just use plain interior white, and what I'm doing here is a dry brush technique over the edges. So I dab my brush in just a tiny bit of paint from the lid, and I pretty much brush off all of that paint, like so that I'm just left with the faintest little bit of paint left on the brush. And I do very light feather strokes all over the edges of the piece. So all over the drawers and down the edges. And you can see this technique demonstrated in my bedside table makeover, which will be in the link below. So for the mirror, I'm using this rhinestone mesh that I purchased from eBay. This whole roll was about $15. So what I'm doing here is just measuring out the length of mesh that I need for each strip of the mirror, and I'm just putting some PVA glue along the middle and some stronger, like an E6000 glue along the edges, just to help secure that mesh down completely. And I just smooth it all out with my fingers and press it on, and repeat this for the whole mirror. Once all the paint has dried, we need to seal it in with some wax. You can see here now the paint's dry, and it's got that cloudy sort of texture to the piece, which is the look that I was after, as well as the highlight with the white to give it that aged look. So the wax I like to use is Rust-Oleum Furniture Finishing Wax, and I just apply this with a paintbrush, or you can apply it with a rag. So just brush it on over the whole piece, and this will help protect your paint, and it will also help to smooth out the finish as well. So now the final reveal. So here's our mirror frame. I haven't put the mirror back in just to make it easier to film, but the mirror is just sitting next to the dressing table itself. So this is just the mirror with the rhinestone mesh over it. This is now the dressing table with the little handles. Now the handles I purchased from eBay. They were about $10 for a pack of 10. And this is the finish on the top. It's sort of like a cloudy type finish, as well as that aged look that we got from the white highlight. This is the dry brushing technique over the top to help give it that French country look. So each of the pieces in my bedroom series, they're all going to be slightly different shades of grey. So my bedside tables were a darker grey. This is the lighter grey, just so that they're not too matchy-matchy, even though the style of them is exactly the same and the handles I'll be using are exactly the same. So each of the pieces will have a different paint technique and slightly different colors as well. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, click subscribe because I have still quite a few more furniture makeovers coming up. And if you want, check out my other videos because I have done quite a few furniture makeovers already, and this is the second video in my Master Bedroom Makeover series. And I'll have a couple of links in the description box below for other videos that you might be interested in. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.